Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me for the first time in a very long time, Tom Knighton of Bearing Arms. I like to call him the attitude behind Bearing Arms. All you got to do is read the stories. You find a story over on Bearing Arms with attitude, you know Tom wrote it.
I got to be me, man.
Okay. Getting social media hooked up here. I want to remind everybody, if you have a comment about anything we're going to be talking about today, if you have a comment, go ahead and get your comments in. We'll put the comments up and discuss them while we're on the air. I'm wondering, Tom, I think most people are out doing a cookout or maybe getting ready to shoot off some fireworks or celebrating Independence Day. I don't know how many people we're going to be getting live watching us, but I'm sure we'll be getting some on podcasts. So
my adoring fans won't be swooning waiting for this.
Yeah, it's you would think this is just
like, both of them.
This should be like it used to be. I remember when I was growing up, Tuesday nights you had to watch NBC TV because the Cheers was coming on, and you had to watch. It was appointment TV. You had to be there to watch it. And so
because everyone's going to talk about it the next day.
Yeah. So you should be here watching us live, and if you're not, well, catch us on replay. But we do have a lot of stuff to talk about today, and I want.
Yeah.
Normally, I have what I call a 72-hour rule, and I don't give opinions about bad things happening for 72 hours. However, this is all over the news. I want to let you know that something has happened there in Highland Park, just outside of Chicago, one of the most stringent gun laws in the nation. Some of the most stringent gun laws in the nation are in Chicago. Today there were 6 people killed and 31 others are hospitalized following shooting at a 4th of July parade at Highland Park, Illinois. I'm getting this off of Fox News. City of Highland Park initially stated 16 people were injured and 5 were killed, but officials amended the total to 6 dead and 31 injured during an afternoon press conference. Law enforcement agencies are searching for the suspect. Evidence of a firearm has been recovered. The suspect is described as a white male, 18 to 20 years old, with longish black hair. I don't know what happened there. My social media program just spit up at me. Anyway, suspect is described as a white male, 18 to 20, longish black hair, and a slight build. Numerous law enforcement officers are responding and have secured a perimeter around downtown Highland Park, the city wrote in a statement. And Tom, this is the earliest I've ever commented on anything like this. Like you wrote in your article over on Bearing Arms, this is a very fluid thing, man. Everything's going to change in 24 hours.
Yeah. Always is. When we wrote about, when we covered Uvalde, there was a story about a school resource officer who was shot and get the suspect, and that turned out to be false. That was an official report. That wasn't even the news running with something. So, we're going to get a lot of different information coming in. It's going to be kind of a train wreck for a little bit. You're going to get conflicting information. For example, 5 people shot, 16 injured. Then they amend it to 6 and 31. In the morning, that number could be very different. Some of those shot may pass away. It could be some of those shot were double counted.
Yes.
Some of the deceased may have been double counted. Anything's up for grabs.
Yes.
This is what's being officially reported now. That's the only thing we can say definitively right now is this is the official word.
Yeah.
That's it.
We are getting comments coming in, at least from the YouTube side. So I do know people are watching. So Facebook says we've got a viewer, but nobody's counted yet. Nobody's commented yet. So, um, we do have some good news to talk about today. And by the way, this may be a short show today. And for live viewers, there will not be a Polite Society podcast live tonight. I couldn't, there wasn't enough of my staff, and I'm not going to do a 90-minute monologue. I can pull off a daily bullet if I have to. I can do 30 minutes solo because enough of you comment that I can play off of you. It's more fun to play off of Tom because it's more immediate, but there are enough people that comment that I can do 30 minutes, but 90 minutes of a solo show, man, that's a tall order. And I just
a lot on tap.
Yeah. But anyway, I want to move on to what we got. Washington State. And this is good news out of Washington State. Number of active concealed pistol licenses in Washington State has soared by more than 11,200 in June. That's a possible reaction to a continuing spike in violent crime. It's the second number of CPLs issued in a single month since April 2013, when the number soared by 13,932, according to new data from the State Department of Licensing. Tom, I wonder if this is not Washington has got a whole lot of anti-gun laws that kicked in July 1st. I wonder if this isn't a response to that, people saying, well, I better get this while I can. Now, none of those laws affect concealed carry permits, but I think the people see the writing on the wall and they're getting their concealed carry permit while they can. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's possible. It's also, to agree, I think maybe people trying to, I'm going to show them there's a lot more of us than they think. 11,000 people in the state of Washington, which is not Texas, California, New York, Florida. It's
Right.
not that popular. 11,000 people in a month get their carry permit. It is kind of a signal that, hey, you guys in Seattle and Olympia don't really in Spokane and died for, your whole state.
I want to skip around a little bit because I want to put up a comment by George. George says, howdy folks, still trying to get undoxed. Of course, George is in California, specifically the San Diego area, California.
Yeah.
And I want to jump down to a story that we have, and let me go back to show notes here. I titled this one, in the Gee, Do You Think department, cybersecurity experts indicate the California Department of Justice did not follow basic safety protocols in the lead up to Monday's private information related to concealed carry permit holders, and the leak of private information related to concealed private carry holders. I hate to seem like a tinfoil hat person, but one has to wonder with the state of California if this wasn't a little bit by design. They claim it's by accident. They claim they're doing everything they can to make sure that the data is secure now, but that's the barn doors are open. The horse got out.
I get where you're coming from. I tend to follow the never ascribe to malice what you can easily ascribe to competence. In California's case, it's a matter of they just didn't care. Those are gun owners. And then, oh crap, we got a problem because not only are these gun owners aware of this, it's going to blow back on us. Oh, we better scramble now. I think it was just a case of they didn't care enough to really take, those steps. Because let's be honest, if they cared enough, they wouldn't have made that information remotely searchable anyways. There is no good reason for people to be able to tell what's in the neighborhood. Trust me, I live here in Georgia. There's guns in every neighborhood.
Yeah,
we just accept it as a fact of life.
I'm trying to. There's a town just north of Atlanta. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but Kennesaw is it?
Kennesaw, yes. Georgia.
Where you're the city statute. The city statute is you must own a firearm.
Every household must have a firearm. Now, it's never been enforced.
Right,
They
and you
never
can opt
intended to
out
enforce it.
because of
It-
if you
yeah,
don't believe in owning firearms, you can opt out. But
it's but it was a middle finger to somewhere that banned guns, and they're like, it's still a good middle finger. That middle finger works just fine. Uh, but it's interesting because after they passed that ordinance, crime cratered.
maybe we should
Crime
go to
about
Atlanta
cratered in
instead of Kennesaw.
Yeah, like, let's there's a better picking somewhere else.
Yes,
Now, granted, this is still Georgia. The pickings are never great,
right.
Or constitutional carry, castle doctrine, stand your ground. Bring it.
Yes. Well, and constitutional carry, that's fairly recent. That's this year. One thing I like that your state does. One thing I like that your state does is when the governor signed permitless carry, it went into effect that very minute.
Yeah, I saw the report and I immediately wanted to leave my wallet at home and go for a walk. I just decided I didn't want to be a test case for some cop.
There you go. Speaking of carry permits, man, I want to get into this one too. New York is if you're outside of New York City, you before this Supreme Court decision, you could get a carry permit. It's just you couldn't get one for New York City. Now, the Supreme Court has said, look, shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. You have to issue carry permits. This is off of Breitbart.com. New York Democrats are pushing legislation to require the social media accounts of concealed carry applicants to be scanned before a carry permit is issued. The push is part of New York Democrats' reaction to the June 23rd SCOTUS ruling. Tom, you would never, ever, ever get a permit in New York.
No,
I would never get a permit.
Neither would most of us. I don't. Now, let's understand this is based on Injustice's ruling. There is a talk about a suitability requirement being historically acceptable. Now, that suitability was, we know you're a criminal. We just haven't been able to catch you. Or here in Georgia at least for a long time, if you had a misdemeanor drug conviction, you couldn't get a carry permit. That falls under that suitability requirement. That's the kind of stuff they're talking about. What Hochul and New York Democrats are wanting to do is they're wanting to find an excuse. If you're in New York, lock down your social media now. Lock it down.
Just delete it.
Because my understanding is that they can actually demand a password to get access to private posts.
Oh,
that's going to start falling into some Fourth Amendment stuff.
Yes,
they can scan your public stuff, and if all your public stuff is kittens and puppies, there's not a lot they can do there. But what's really troubling about this is Hochul made the comment that we're going to have objective criteria laid out. If that's not laid out in the bill, that wasn't laid out in the bill exactly what that objective criteria is. This is a product. This is a recipe for abuse. This will be abused immediately. If Hochul is not the one who abuses it, and just for the sake of argument, let's say she's not, what about the next person? Yeah. And they're talking about, it's objective criteria. What is she considering objective criteria? Is criticism of Black Lives Matter going to count as racism, and therefore you can't get a permit? Is dark humor going to be considered grounds that you're actually a killer in the making? Because that's the case, I'm definitely never getting a permit.
Well, and will it be applied equal? Will it be applied all the way the same all the way around? I'm thinking of
exactly.
There's a comedian, although I use that term very excuse me, very loosely. Her big shock thing here a few years ago, when Trump was in office is she had some artwork done where she was holding Trump's severed head up, and
Yeah,
that and
Kathy
that,
Griffin.
that to me, yeah, Kathy Griffin. That would mean to me that says to me that's somebody that's mentally unbalanced and probably, you know, should get some scrutiny,
Yeah,
at least from mental health people. And I'm wondering if people like that, well, because they're on the correct side of the political spectrum, we're going to let that slide. They'll still get their permit.
yeah, and that's another valid. And I mean, you just sit there and wonder if Clarence Thomas was looking at the news, saying, "F around and find out," because
Yeah,
this is back before them.
I'm trying.
They're going to see this case again. They're going to see this again.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. If you give me just a second here, I'm trying to get social media, my social media that picks up. For some reason, the program that picks up social media posts is just not working. And so, if you're having issues getting your
Taking a
comment in,
holiday.
yeah, if you're having problems getting your comments in on social media, just if you have a Twitter account, tweet with the hashtag Bullet Podcast. That will get to me, and I'll get your comment on the air. Um, Next, and I want to stay in New York. And speaking of Governor Hochul, and I use air quotes because she's not been elected. She was appointed after the last clown resigned in disgrace. Um, she was interviewed last week, and you actually wrote about this back on the first. What an interviewer asked her, "Do you have the numbers to show the concealed carry permit holders are the ones committing crimes?" Because the lawful gun owner will say you're attacking the wrong person. That it's really the people getting the guns legally that are causing the violence, not people going and getting the that it's the people are getting guns illegally that are causing the violence, not the people going and getting the permit legally. Do you have the numbers? She replied, and get this, I don't need to have numbers. I don't need to have a data point to say this. I know that I have a responsibility to the people of this state to have sensible gun safety laws, and this one was not devised by the Hochul administration. It comes out of an administration from 1908. I don't need a data point to say I have a responsibility to protect the people of this state. Governor Hochul, do you think that something or another might have changed in the nation or maybe in New York, that things changed since 1908, maybe just a little bit?
Well, and then there's this point. She says, "I don't need numbers to justify gun control."
Mm-hmm.
Like hell, don't. You are talking about restricting law-abiding Americans' rights. You need to show clear, convincing evidence, at a minimum, that this is necessary, because the data is clear cut as they like to believe. A recent story a month or two back with a Bloomberg writer talking about bad a lot of the gun studies are. Like one saying, talking about how Connecticut, after permit, crime dropped X%. It turned out they were comparing that versus this actual Connecticut that they
they manufactured a virtual Connecticut. Yes.
Right. And then even by that basis, after a couple of years, crime was right back where it had been. That never made the stories either, So yeah, if you're going to someone's rights, you better have clear evidence that it is absolutely essential to save human lives. Absolutely, absolutely essential. There can be no debate possible that if you do not do this, more people will die than if you do it. Because that's what a lot of people look at. They're like, well, it's gun control is going to save lives. How many lives will it take? How many lives will it cost? 2.5 million defensive gun uses every year. You're going to tell me absolutely none of them are going to die? if they don't have a gun? You're gonna? Can you really tell me that?
Rob
I don't
Morse
think so.
is a Rob Morse. One of he writes the Slow Facts blog. He's on Polite Society podcast. He does his own self defense gun stories podcast, but he's an engineer by training. He's a nuclear engineer. He's a brilliant man, and he's run numbers. He took numbers of actual, you know, defensive gun use and actual crime numbers, and applied them to what, a particular law is projected to do, and projected bad use of guns is expected to drop by 0 point something percent, and then then he goes, okay, but if the good number of gun uses drops by, and he says your law is going to kill this many people. And I wish more lawmakers would pay attention to that, because almost every law, if it restricts our right, it kills people.
Exactly. And, Hochul's sitting here going, oh, I don't know. This is restricting a constitutionally protected right. Frankly, I'll be honest. I don't care what the numbers would say, because, again, it's a right. Mm-hmm. My rights are not up for debate. Okay. But this will save, more than 200,000 lives a day. I don't care, because the life it costs could be mine.
Yes. And it will cost
even if it didn't, I'd still oppose it.
Yeah.
But for Hochul to sit there and say that she doesn't have to justify restricting a constitutionally protected right, one that her state was just slapped down by this for refusing to recognize as an individual right that exists outside of the home as well as inside. And she's like, I don't have to show numbers. Like, hell you don't.
Yeah. Well, and I believe I'll have to do a fast Google search, but and sorry if my keyboard is showing up on the microphone, but the microphone's right there, keyboard's right there. So here we go. And she is not up for re-election. Oh, wait a minute. She is up for re-election this year. So
probably because she was appointed to fill in for Cuomo's term. Yeah. A lot of times when that happens, the next election cycle, after X whatever, you're up. And it was time for Cuomo to be up.
She did win the Democratic primary for governor for New York this year, so she will be the Democratic nominee for election. Now, I'm not going to say re-election because she wasn't elected. So
no, she was the lieutenant governor who moved into the slot. Cuomo was even more of a filthy pig than we thought.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Let's
shocking.
This one came out. Came to my email box early this morning. Second Amendment Foundation hailed the U.S. Supreme Court decision to vacate lower court rulings in several gun rights cases and remand them back to lower courts for review in light of last week's 6-3 decision in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen. Chief among these cases is Bianchi Dominic et al. Versus Frosch, a case brought by SAF and the Citizens' Right Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, challenging Maryland's 2013 ban on so-called assault weapons. All other cases include challenges to restrictive gun laws in Hawaii, New Jersey, and California. In addition, an SAF case called McDougal versus Ventura County, which challenges the closure of gun shops 2 years ago during the COVID-19 panic, has been vacated by a Ninth Circuit en banc panel and remanded to the trial court for action consistent with the Supreme Court's New York ruling. This is incredibly good news,
Yeah.
said SAF founder and executive vice president Alan Gottlieb. The importance of Justice Clarence Thomas's majority opinion in the New York right to carry case may not be fully understood until all of these other cases have gone through lower court review. What we're seeing today could be the beginning of court actions that eventually fully restore rights protected by the Second Amendment. And
Yeah.
I
This
want to be
is,
one of the first to say Clarence Thomas for sainthood.
I'm not going to argue. I mean, oh man, it when Heller came out, I remember reading the Heller decision and a little disappointed it didn't go as far as I thought it should have. I was glad it's definitively said the Second Amendment is an individual right. Not that it's helped, because certain Nimrods keep saying it's not, but in the court where it matters, that's the cut and dried. That's no longer for debate. What this one does is, it wasn't quite, what part of shall not be infringed do you not understand, but it's about as close as we were ever going to get. Because there's always going to be some room for, regulation and control, but now that every state has to basically be shall issue, it's the equivalent of, it's more in line with getting a permit to hold a protest. You couldn't say, no, you can't get a protest because we don't like what you have to say. Everybody had to get be able to get a permit. The only way you could tell them somebody else is having a protest the same place at the same time. And it's just, it's so close to perfect.
Speaking as a purist for all rights, that always bothers me when you have to get a right to protest. The right to free speech shall not be infringed either.
Right. But I also said it's a logistical thing. You need to be able to route traffic, make sure there's law enforcement for crowd control to keep, counter protesters away. There's logistical reasons that make it necessary. I agree it shouldn't be necessary. And, really, if it's just you going out to protest, you don't even need a permit. If you just happen to show up, and maybe a couple of buddies with picket signs, you can protest. There's nothing, it's when you have a crowd. And I get the logic behind it, even though I disagree. But at least now it's at least even.
Yeah.
Because the amendment was very much a second-class right, because you could be denied that right for no reason.
Yes, you could.
Because we had to show good reason in some to get a permit. We didn't have to have a good reason to tell us.
And I hate to pick on Georgia, but I'm gonna pick on Georgia. Second Amendment rights, historically, especially shortly after the Civil War, were very much second-class rights in Georgia if you happen to be anything other than a white male.
Hey, we had a clause in our gun laws, which is called where you could not carry a weapon to a quote-unquote public gathering. That law spanned from something called the Camilla Massacre, which happened not too far from where I'm sitting, where a group of black men and women were protesting what they said was the illegal removal of a couple of black Republican members of the General Assembly. They were going to march from Camilla to Albany to protest. Whites with guns started shooting at them.
Oh.
So they went, got guns, and were ready to shoot back. Well, the General Assembly they didn't have a problem with the white guys shooting at the black guys. They had a problem with the black guys being able to shoot back. So they passed a law that said you can't bring a gun to a public gathering. That's where most gun control laws started. It was not, we're going to crime, it's we're going to control black people.
It's absolutely true. Well, we are coming down on the bottom of the hour. Tom, on our way out, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you've written or that is upcoming you want to draw attention to, dude?
Uh, cannot think of anything just yet. I've just gotten off of this is the end of my 3-day weekend. I'm going to be writing like crazy tomorrow, covering more about the Chicago thing. And then I'm off for 5 days straight. So that's all I got coming up.
Okay, so I got you at a good time in that I got you before your vacation.
Yes, yes. I'm looking forward to a vacation too. I haven't had one in about 10 years.
Ah, well, enjoy your vacation, dude. And for everybody watching, thank you for watching. I will endeavor to get the social media feed fixed so I can get comments up on the air. If you have been watching, have been commenting, thank you. For some reason, my software will not pick it up, but I encourage you come watch 5 p.m. Central Time the rest of the week, and we'll continue to bring you Second Amendment news all week long. Thanks again, everybody, and we will see you next time.